Good day, everyone. Welcome to Another Perspective. As I sat down to start this, and I like to have the TV on for background noise, and guess what the program was about? Well, yes, it was about the very subject I'm going to tell you about. A big shout out to Jesse B from work. He suggested this for a possible topic. So I'm going to strike while the iron is hot, so here goes. As with anything these days, I'm required to give you a warning. Some content may be objectionable and viewer discretion is advised. The topic today is an unsolved crime. It occurred on the 24th of November 1971 and it grabbed the attention of the public, law enforcement officials, the airline industry, and it's still talked about today. On Thanksgiving Eve 1971, a man boarded Northwest Orient Airline Flight 305 at Portland, Oregon. The Boeing 727 was bound for Seattle, Washington, which should have taken about 30 minutes. Just after takeoff, this man gave a note to the stewardess who was sitting near him. Initially, she ignored it, but the man informed her that he had a bomb on board. This is the story of D.B. Cooper. According to the story, he demanded $200,000 in ransom and 4 parachutes. As the aircraft circled Seattle, the flight attendant said he appeared that he knew the area. He could identify local areas from the air, and his selection of parachutes was noted. He rejected military parachutes and instead chose 4 from a local skydiving school. The military parachutes may not have been able to be deployed manually, whereas the civilian parachutes were deployed using ripcords. The law enforcement authorities assembled the ransom and gathered up the parachutes. Upon landing in Seattle, the ransom and parachutes were delivered to the plane and accepted by one of the flight crew. He released all of the passengers and 1 flight attendant. The flight plan he gave to the flight crew was somewhat different. They were to fly in a southeast direction towards Mexico City. They were not to fly higher than 10,000 feet, and the landing gear had to remain down. The flaps lowered to 15 degrees and the cabin was to remain unpressurized. A detail on the 727 aircraft is that it has a rear staircase. Here's some pictures. The hijacker wanted it to remain down on the takeoff, but the flight crew persuaded him to have it raised due to safety concerns. They took off at 7:40 p.m. and at about 8 p.m. a warning light flashed in the cockpit, indicating the rear exit and staircase had been opened. The crew also noticed that the air pressure in the aircraft had changed, indicating the rear exit was open. The aircraft had a handling issue at 8:13 p.m. and later landed in Reno, Nevada at 10:15 p.m. The rear exit and staircase were still deployed in the open position and the hijacker was no longer on board. So where did he go? Remember when the 727 had a handling issue at 8:13 p.m., the tail end of the aircraft suddenly rose, and the flight crew had to trim the aircraft so it could maintain a normal flight profile. The FBI later conducted a test using the same flight configuration and pushed a 200-pound slide out of the rear exit, and the result was the same, a sudden rise of the high aircraft's tail. This means it was 8:13 p.m. when the hijacker jumped. A search lasting several weeks was conducted, but no sign of the hijacker was ever discovered. The search area is vast, and even the smallest error of the speed, direction, time of jump, the weather, and a bunch of other factors can expand the search area even further. 3 things are evident. Whoever the hijacker was knew enough about the 727 model to know the rear exit could be opened and deployed while in flight. The CIA used the 727 to airdrop supplies to various groups they supported. Most civilian crews did not know about the ability to deploy the rear staircase while in flight. Number 2, he knew about navigation in the air, as he identified several points on the initial flight from Portland. He also probably had a fairly good idea of about where he would be in the air when he jumped at 8:13 p.m. Number 3, he knew enough about freefall parachuting to know this is not a good time for your first jump. In the dark, from 10,000 feet and cloud cover at about 5,000 feet. The rejection of military parachutes and the acceptance of civilian freefall parachutes deployed by ripcords might tell us this perpetrator may have been somewhat educated in freefall parachuting. Also, above 10,000 feet, you need oxygen to jump, or so I'm told. I'm going to go on a little digression here for a minute. I am personally not jump qualified. I was in the military for 38 years, and I know several parachute qualified soldiers and military freefall soldiers. Many of them were on the Skyhawks parachute demonstration team. The basic jump is from a transport aircraft at about 1,000 feet, and you're hooked up to a static line which deploys the parachute pretty much as soon as you exit the aircraft. Freefall, on the other hand, is a different kettle of fish. As far as I know, you can jump out, navigate to a certain point in altitude in the air, and then either pull the ripcord or your altimeter deploys your chute for you. Anyone with any qualifications to speak on this, please weigh in. The freefall chutes are rectangular and can be navigated or flown to the landing zone. Like I said, if any former Skyhawks or Pathfinders want to weigh in, please do so. An extensive search that lasted weeks was conducted, but no sign of D.B. Cooper was ever found, which leads to some theories. There have been several plausible such people investigated over the last 49 years, but for whatever reason, no one was arrested and charged with a crime. I'm not going to go into detail here. It would take a long time. There were several results from this hijacking. The airline industry began searching baggage in 1973. The Boeing 727s were modified so that the rear exit and staircase could not be deployed during flight. Peepholes were installed in cockpit doors so the flight crew could observe passengers without opening the door. So the question remains, where did he go? What happened to D.B. Cooper? There are some theories out there. The first theory is he didn't survive the jump. According to the FBI, the aircraft would have been flying at about 172 miles an hour in that particular configuration. He jumped without a helmet, in street clothes, in near winter conditions. If he did manage to land, it was in the wilderness, in the winter, without proper clothing. He may have perished. The second theory is that he survived the jump but lost the money on the descent. Make no mistake, parachuting itself is dangerous, but this one is extremely hazardous. He may have planned to land, then hitchhike out of the woods and back to his life. No one was reported missing on the 4-day weekend, so he may have made it back without raising suspicions. There were a few bills that were found years later in the wilderness that were part of the ransom, so that theory may be plausible. The last theory was presented on TV, and that was the show that was on when I was doing the wording for this. The theory is that he got away, somehow made it to Las Vegas. While he was in Las Vegas, he laundered the money, and that's the theory. How realistic is this? Who really knows? The people in Vegas says it's very realistic to launder money there, especially in 1973. My guess is he didn't survive the jump, but I'm not an expert. Here's a slight twist. The FBI has theorized that the name used, D.B. Cooper, is a take on a Royal Canadian Air Force comic character, Dan Cooper, who could do anything and everything. The FBI also has a very interesting profile on the unknown subject, and it seems quite realistic. Well, That's it for another perspective. I hope you enjoyed my real quick rundown of D.B. Cooper and the saga that remains one of the biggest unsolved crimes in history. I have a few episodes in the work that you may be interested in. I won't tell you what they are, but I think you'll like them. Until next time, may the Force be with you.